Ladies and gentlemen, life is a race not against other people, but against time, against your own excuses, against wasted years. And here's a principle I want you to remember. The one who starts late has to run twice as fast. Now, don't misunderstand me. Starting late doesn't mean you've lost. It simply means you've got a little more work to do, a little more fire to build, and a little less room for excuses. See, some people start young, they catch the vision early, they get disciplined, they build good habits, and they're stacking bricks on their foundation, while others are still sleeping. By the time you wake up, they've already built the first floor of their dream. And if you've started late, you can't afford to walk casually. You've got to sprint. You've got to push harder. You've got to double your effort. Why? Because time doesn't wait. The clock is ticking whether you're ready or not. And if you want to catch up, you've got to play the game with intensity. Now here's the good news. People who start late often carry something powerful: urgency. Urgency sharpens your focus. Urgency forces you to stop wasting time on gossip, on distractions, on meaningless pursuits. Urgency makes you serious about life. But here's the mistake many people make. They spend more time regretting the years they lost than investing in the years they still have. Don't let yesterday steal today. If you started late, fine. So what? That just means today becomes more valuable. Think of it this way. If you're behind in the race, you don't jog. You accelerate. You push yourself. You breathe harder. You sweat more. You commit deeper. That's the price of starting late, but it's also the beauty of it. You build strength, you build resilience, and you discover just how much potential was hiding inside you all along. So here sits my challenge to you. Don't complain about the years you didn't use wisely. Maximize the ones in front of you. Don't envy those who started earlier. Outwork them, outfocus them, outlearn them. Don't stat. Walk. Run. Because when you run twice as fast, you not only catch up, you sometimes surpass the ones who had the early start, but lost their hunger. My friends, the race isn't always won by the one who started first. Sometimes it's won by the one who decided, I may be late, but I refuse to be last. So if you've started late, don't be discouraged. Be determined. Let your urgency be your advantage. Let your hunger be your engine. Run fast. Run hard. Run with purpose. Because the one who starts late has to run twice as fast, and that's exactly why you'll finish strong. Life, in many ways, is a lot like the body. As a doctor looks at the human system, we notice that everything operates on time. The heart has a rhythm, the lungs have a cycle, the brain works in pulses, and just like the body, life itself has a clock that does not stop ticking. The truth is, whether you recognize it or not, you are in a race, not a race against other people, but a race against time itself. Time is the silent force that keeps moving forward, whether you are prepared, whether you are disciplined, or whether you are distracted. That is why when you start late, the urgency is greater. You are running against a clock that does not pause to give you room to catch your breath. Many people misunderstand the race of life. They think the competitor is the person next door, the colleague at work, the student in their class, or the friend who started earlier. But from the perspective of reality and even of medicine, the competition is not external, it is internal. You are competing against your own decay, your own habits, your own tendency to delay and waste. Just as muscles weaken when left unused, opportunities fade when left untouched. A doctor knows that when you don't exercise, the body doesn't stay neutral, it deteriorates. Life operates the same way. If you are not moving forward, you are sliding backward because time never stops. The one who starts late, therefore, must understand that they are not only behind others, they are behind their own potential. And catching up requires energy, discipline, and focus. Think of a patient who ignored their health for 20 years. By the time they finally sit in the consultation room, they cannot afford casual advice. They need immediate intervention. They need to run twice as fast with their lifestyle changes. Why? Because the neglect has created a gap. The same applies to life and success. The longer you wait, the more aggressively you must pursue your purpose once you finally wake up. Now, there is no need to despair if you are late. Now, late is not fatal. In medicine, a patient may come in late with a condition, but that does not always mean it's over. It just means the treatment plan is harder, the discipline must be stricter, and the margin for error is smaller. In life, the same rule applies. If you discover your vision at 40 or your discipline at 50, it's not the end. But it does mean that wasting even one more day could prove costly. Your race against time has narrowed, so every hour matters more. What makes this perspective powerful is the clarity it brings. Those who know they are late become sharper. They do not waste hours scrolling endlessly. They cannot afford to sleep through their mornings. They feel the weight of time pressing against them, and that pressure can be turned into power. Urgency is the medicine for delay. It may be bitter, but it heals. It cures procrastination. It burns away excuses, and it strengthens focus like nothing else. So when I say life is a race against time, I do not mean it to frighten you. I mean it to awaken you. A doctor tells the patient the truth, not to discourage, but to save. And here is the truth. If you have started late, you must move quickly, because time is already ahead of you. But here is the encouragement: with the right discipline, the right urgency, and the right consistency, you can regain ground. The body can heal if treated well, and life can yield extraordinary results if lived with purpose. The clock keeps ticking, but it is not against you. It is simply reminding you that your moment is now. When a patient arrives late to the hospital, there is often a sense of urgency, but there is also a critical truth. Late does not mean lost. In medicine, I have seen people walk into the emergency room when things looked grim, yet with proper intervention, discipline, and cooperation, they recover. The same principle applies in life. Starting late does not equal defeat. What it does mean is that you have to treat every action, every choice, with more seriousness than before. The earlier you begin, the more freedom you have. But if you start later, you still possess the same potential for recovery, for achievement, for strength. You just cannot afford to delay treatment. Think of how the body works. A young patient who has taken care of themselves may not need as many changes when problems arise. Their system is resilient. It adapts quickly. But someone who comes in later, having ignored their health for years, has to make dramatic changes. They cannot simply adjust a little. They must overhaul their lifestyle. Does that mean they cannot succeed? No. In fact, many latecomers experience remarkable transformations because they bring seriousness, urgency, and a sense of determination that early starters sometimes lack in life. When you start late, you are forced to see time differently. You stop wasting hours on gossip, distractions, or trivial pursuits because you know the clock is running. That awareness becomes an advantage. But here's the danger. Many people confuse late with failure. They believe because they did not begin early, they have already lost. This is like a patient saying, "Doctor, because I ignored my health for 10 years, it's too late for me to heal." Yet I have seen 70-year-olds reverse diabetes, 60-year-olds rebuild strength, and patients on the edge of despair regain vitality. Late did not mean lost. It only meant the journey was steeper, the climb more demanding. In life, it works the same way. If you discover your purpose late, you simply need to climb faster. If you find discipline after years of waste, you must tighten your grip on it and not let go. Now, why is starting late not losing? Because life does not reward the early starter, it rewards the committed one. In the same way, health does not reward the one who never got sick. It rewards the one who chooses to heal and stay consistent. Yes, if you had started earlier, the path might have been easier. But the reality is, most early starters become casual. They relax, thinking they have time. Many of them lose their hunger. On the other hand, the one who starts late often carries a fire that others do not. They know they must run faster, focus deeper, and value each step. That intensity creates results. Imagine two patients. One begins their recovery plan at 30, the other at 50. The younger one may take it lightly, skipping steps because they believe they can afford to. The older one, however, understands the price of delay. They do not skip. They do not joke. They commit fully. Often the older one achieves a greater transformation because their effort is doubled, their urgency sharpened, their hunger unmatched. So it is in the race of life. Starting late may feel like a disadvantage, but it can become a hidden strength. You no longer have the illusion of endless time. You see the truth clearly, and truth is powerful. If you accept that you must work harder, faster, and smarter, you can still achieve greatness. As a doctor, I can tell you this: a late diagnosis does not mean there is no cure. It means treatment must be immediate and consistent. Likewise, a late start in life does not mean you cannot reach your goals. It simply means you cannot afford casual steps. You must decide today that lateness is not loss. It is simply the moment when you woke up, the moment when you took life seriously, the moment when you finally began running your race with purpose. Urgency is one of the most powerful medicines life can prescribe, especially for those who have started late. When a patient arrives at the hospital with a critical condition, the atmosphere changes instantly. The room is filled with urgency. Nurses move faster, doctors act without hesitation, and every second counts. That sense of urgency sharpens the mind and eliminates all distractions. No one is discussing casual topics. Everyone is focused on the essential. This is the gift that lateness brings to life. It forces urgency into your system, and if you embrace it, that urgency becomes your advantage. Think about how the body responds under pressure. When there is a threat, the nervous system activates a fight or flight response. The heart beats faster, blood flow increases, and focus becomes sharper. That state is uncomfortable, but it is also highly effective. It enables survival. Similarly, when you start late in life, you cannot afford a relaxed pace. You must live with a heightened sense of focus. Urgency pushes you to use your time wisely, to cut away what is unnecessary, and to concentrate on what truly matters. Now, some people who start early develop the illusion of abundance. They think, I have time, I can relax, I'll get serious tomorrow. They live as though tomorrow is guaranteed, and this casual attitude often leads to wasted years. In medicine, we call this negligence. When a patient ignores symptoms because they believe they have time, their condition worsens. But the one who comes late and realizes the gravity of their situation treats every instruction with seriousness. They follow prescriptions. They show up for appointments. They take no advice lightly. Urgency makes them compliant, committed, and focused. In life, the same applies. Latecomers cannot afford indifference. They must act with precision. Urgency also clears away excuses. In a critical room, no one debates whether treatment is convenient. Convenience does not matter when survival is at stake. Likewise, when you are late to your dreams, you cannot argue with discipline. You cannot complain about discomfort. You cannot postpone action. Urgency teaches you to act regardless of mood, regardless of fatigue, regardless of obstacles. It teaches you that waiting is no longer an option, and that mindset alone gives you an edge over those who take their time for granted. Consider this. Urgency does not make the path easier, but it makes you stronger. Just as the body adapts under stress, urgency forces adaptation in life. You discover focus you never knew you had. You eliminate wasteful habits that once seemed normal. You stop spending hours on distractions because urgency whispers you cannot afford this anymore. Urgency disciplines the mind the way medicine disciplines the body. It removes toxins, whether those toxins are laziness, excuses, or fear. Some will say that living with urgency feels stressful. And yes, urgency creates pressure. But let me remind you, in medicine, pressure is sometimes necessary. A surgeon applies pressure to stop bleeding, not to harm but to save. In the same way, urgency applies pressure on your life, not to break you but to preserve your potential. Without urgency, you drift. With urgency, you accelerate. So if you have started late, do not see urgency as a curse. See it as a cure. It is the gift that forces you to move, to act, to maximize what remains of your time. Urgency becomes your personal motivator, your inner doctor, prescribing focus and discipline every single day. And if you follow that prescription, you will discover that urgency, though uncomfortable, is the very force that allows you not only to catch up, but sometimes to surpass those who began before you. Regret is one of the most dangerous diseases of the human spirit. As a doctor, I have seen patients whose bodies were suffering, but their minds were suffering even more. They sat across from me, not only weighed down by illness, but by the heavy burden of regret. Regret that they did not take care of themselves earlier, regret that they ignored the warnings, regret that they wasted precious years. And here is what I tell them. Regret does not heal. Regret does not rebuild strength. Regret does not add time to your life. It only steals the energy you need to move forward. In medicine, we never tell a patient, "You should have come earlier," as the final verdict. We acknowledge the truth, yes, but then we immediately shift to action, because the body does not respond to regret. It responds to treatment. The same is true in life. You cannot go back to yesterday. You cannot undo wasted years, but you can invest in today. You can start treatment now. You can begin running instead of standing still, looking backward. Regret is like sitting in the waiting room long after the doctor has called your name. The opportunity for healing is available, but you remain stuck in the past, replaying what you could have done differently. This is how many live their lives. They replay the mistakes, the missed chances, the years wasted in distraction. But here's the truth. Replaying the past does not rewrite it. Just as the body heals through present care, life transforms through present action. The tragedy of regret is that it paralyzes. It convinces people that because they failed yesterday, they cannot succeed tomorrow. But that is not true. I have seen patients recover strength after years of neglect. I have seen lungs regain capacity after being damaged. I have seen bodies heal when the mind finally decided no more excuses, no more waiting, today I begin. And I have seen lives transformed when people shift from regret to urgency, from looking back to running forward. Running forward means taking ownership. It means saying, yes, I was late, yes, I wasted time, but I will not waste another day. In the same way that a patient with heart disease must begin walking, eating differently, and taking their medicine immediately, a person late in life's race must begin acting, learning, building, and moving without hesitation. The cure is not in regret. It is in disciplined forward motion. Now, does regret have no value at all? It has one. It reminds you of the cost of delay, but beyond that reminder, it must be released. A doctor uses pain as a signal, but not as a prison. Pain tells us something is wrong, but healing comes only when we act. Likewise, regret is a signal, a wake-up call. But once you've heard it, you must let it go and turn it into fuel. Running forward also means adjusting your perspective. When you dwell in regret, you measure your life by what you lost. When you run forward, you measure it by what you still can gain. That shift is powerful. A patient with only 40% lung capacity who chooses to fight can still live years of meaningful, fulfilling life. A person who has lost years of opportunity can still create extraordinary results if they start running now. So the prescription is simple. Stop regretting, start running. Regret is poison. Action is medicine. Regret drains your strength. Action builds it. Regret looks backward. Running looks forward. The one who starts late cannot afford to sit still, and they certainly cannot afford to be trapped in regret. They must run, and they must run with all the energy they have left, because the race is not over yet, and the finish line is still within reach. If you move now, when someone comes into my clinic after years of neglecting their health, I cannot prescribe them the same plan I give to someone who has been taking care of themselves all along. A latecomer requires multiplied effort. If a person ignored exercise for decades, they cannot simply walk for 10 minutes a week and expect transformation. They must double their discipline. They must commit to routines that stretch them, because the gap they created requires acceleration. The same principle applies to life. If you have started late in the race, normal effort will not be enough. You must run twice as fast. You must multiply your actions, your learning, and your consistency if you want to catch up. The body responds to intensity. Muscles grow when they are pushed harder than before. The heart strengthens when placed under controlled stress. The lungs expand capacity when trained with persistence. The system adapts to the pressure it faces. Life works in the same way. When you push yourself harder, when you double your effort, you unlock capacities you didn't know were inside you. Starting late becomes the reason you accelerate, and acceleration becomes the reason you succeed. Now, many people hesitate when they hear this. They say, "Doctor, it sounds too hard. Running twice as fast, working twice as hard, it feels overwhelming." But let me remind you, survival itself is demanding. If a patient is in a critical condition, they do not argue with the treatment plan. They accept the cost, because the alternative is worse. In life, if you are late to your purpose, the alternative to multiplied effort is stagnation. And stagnation is death in slow motion. The cost of not working harder is far greater than the cost of discipline. Effort multiplied is not only about working harder, it is about working smarter. A patient who needs to lose weight quickly cannot afford empty exercises. They need targeted, effective training. Similarly, a late starter cannot afford to waste time on meaningless activities. They must learn faster, seek mentors, avoid distractions, and practice intense focus. Every step must count. Every hour must serve the purpose. Doubling effort means cutting away all waste and channeling your energy into what truly moves you forward. Acceleration also changes psychology. When you demand more from yourself, you realize your capacity was always greater than you believe. I have seen patients who thought they could never exercise push themselves into new strength because urgency demanded it. The body rose to meet the challenge. In life, urgency and multiplied effort create the same effect. You start to see possibilities where before you saw limitations. You discover that the human system, mind, body, and spirit, was designed to adapt under pressure. Of course, multiplied effort requires discipline. Just as a strict medical regimen requires consistency with diet, medicine, and exercise, multiplied life effort requires consistency in habits, routines, and priorities. Missing one day can set you back because you do not have the luxury of lost time. The latecomer must treat every day like a therapy session, necessary, non-negotiable, and life-saving. But here is the beauty. Acceleration creates momentum. At first, the pace feels exhausting. At first, running twice as fast feels impossible. But over time, the body adjusts, the mind sharpens, and what was once overwhelming becomes natural. The patient who could not walk a mile eventually runs marathons. The person who thought they were too late in life builds achievements that inspire generations. The multiplied effort not only bridges the gap, it builds strength that early starters may never acquire. So if you are late in the race, accept the prescription effort must be doubled. Not as punishment, but as cure. Not as burden, but as blessing. Because when you push yourself harder, you discover the true depth of your potential. And when you accelerate, you not only catch up, you may surpass those who began before you, but grew casual in their pace. Effort multiplied creates acceleration, and acceleration can change the entire outcome of your life's race. In medicine, we often see patients who begin strong but fail to finish well. They start their treatment with enthusiasm, but as time passes, they lose discipline. They skip doses, they abandon exercise, they return to harmful habits. Early momentum is wasted because they never finish the program. On the other hand, I have seen patients who began late, who arrived at the clinic when the situation looked difficult, but who made a decision: I will not quit, I will see this through. And many times these patients ended healthier and stronger than those who started early but lost their commitment. This truth applies not just in medicine but in life. Finishing strong is more valuable than starting early. The world celebrates early starters, but life rewards finishers. A patient who began protecting their health in their 20s, but gave up discipline by 40, will not fare better than the one who began at 40, but stayed consistent for the rest of their life. The body responds to what you do today, not to what you once did years ago. Life works the same way. It does not matter that you were disciplined yesterday if you are careless today. What matters is the strength and determination you bring to the present moment and how you carry it to the end. Starting early can be an advantage, but it is never a guarantee. In fact, those who begin early often fall into complacency. They feel secure, they believe they are ahead, and they relax their standards. But complacency is as dangerous as disease. It eats away slowly until progress collapses. Finishing strong, however, comes with a different spirit. It is forged in hunger, sharpened by urgency, and sustained by discipline. A late starter knows they cannot afford to coast. They cannot afford casual living. They approach each step with seriousness, and that seriousness becomes their strength. Think of the human heart. It beats from the first day of life until the last. It does not matter that it started early. What matters is that it keeps going faithfully until the very end. A single failure at the finish line can be fatal. So it is with life. Success is not defined by how quickly you began the race, but by whether you had the endurance to reach the finish line with strength, with dignity, and with purpose. As a doctor, I have seen people transform late in life. A man who abused his health for decades decides at 60 to change, and by 70 he is running marathons. A woman who ignored discipline in her youth decides to get serious, and in her later years she becomes an example to her entire family. They started late, yes, but they finished strong. And their legacy was not in how early they began, but in how powerfully they ended. Finishing strong requires vision. It requires seeing the end as clearly as the beginning. It requires reminding yourself daily that discipline cannot be abandoned. Not for comfort, not for fatigue, not for distraction. Just as a patient cannot stop treatment halfway and expect healing, a person cannot stop discipline halfway and expect success. You must commit until the end. So if you are late, do not despair. If you feel behind, do not give up. What matters most is not your starting point, but your finishing strength. And here lies the beautiful truth. Those who start late often finish with more determination than those who had an early lead. They know the value of time, they know the cost of delay, and they know that every step matters. Life does not hand out trophies for beginning. It rewards those who endure, who fight, who stay the course. So make this your commitment. No matter when you began, you will finish strong. Because finishing strong is greater than starting early. And the legacy of your life will not be measured by the moment you entered the race, but by the strength with which you crossed the finish line.